videos, we're going to work on some linear equations. And so let me first of all start talking about the equation that you're going to be seeing a lot of, and that is y equals mx plus b. So the two very important numbers that we're going to be looking at, and letters in this case, and the variables are m and b. So m is going to be the slope. Okay, that's going to be the steepness of the lines that we graph. It's either going to be in a positive direction or a negative direction. Very steep, not so steep, so forth and so on. So slope, or you'll even hear it as rise over run, and we'll get to more about that in some more videos that we talk about. But this is kind of what we're going on. Or even rate of change. You'll hear that rate of change. So all of these are slope. Okay. So B is where you start. That's the starting point of the line. It's where it crosses the y-axis. So that is the y-intercept. That's what we call B, is the y-intercept. Okay. So that's the two biggest points, or I even say the starting point. You could even say when you start to graph the lines, usually we use that as a starting point. All right, so now let's do some examples. So on these problems, what we're gonna do is try to identify slope and the y-intercept. So they are kind of jumbled up, and we'll get to those issues when we come to that problem. But remember, the equation that we're trying to work with is y equals mx plus b. So that's the equation that we are working with. M is slope, b is the y-intercept. So looking at these, let's identify what m is first, and then we'll go to all the other ones and we'll find what b is. Okay, so let's identify what m is first. This problem right here. So m is going to equal what is next to the x. So wherever the x is located, right next to it is m. So in this case, m is 3. Okay, let's go to the next one. So find x, right next to it is 1/2. So m equals 1/2. Now this one is jumbled up a little bit more. Okay, so we find x. Now what's next to it? 2, and a lot of you would stop there and put 2. However, you need to put the symbol that is in front of that also. So if it's an addition symbol, then it's positive. If it's a subtraction symbol, then it is negative. So it is -2 is the slope on that one. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. Here, you only have x, so our slope is 4/3. So that is how you identify slope in all these equations. Now let's look for b, or the y-intercept. The y-intercept is it's the number that's not next to the x. So for the number 1, the first one here, it's -5. You have to keep the symbol with it. So b equals -5. The next one, we move down for b equals +3, so you just put 3. You don't have to put +3. You don't have to put +3. You just put 3. Now let's look at the next one. 5 is what's left, so there's no symbol in front. It's positive, so you just say b equals 5. And then the next one, we don't have any other numbers, so what it would be is like I could add 0. So technically there is not one, so you just say b equals 0. There's nothing there, so that's when y-intercept is 0. And that's how you identify slope and y-intercept in a few equations. And we'll pass it on to some of the other math teachers. And now you know more.
Hey, I'm Mr. Hart, and now we are going to talk about how to find a linear equation in y equals mx plus b form from a straight line on a graph. So, like what Mr. Gossam was talking about, our equation is y equals mx plus b, where m is our slope and b is our y-intercept. Now, whenever we have a line on a graph, we are going to find our slope using the equation rise over run. So we need to pick out 2 points that we can tell on the graph exactly what they are, and we are just going to see how much do we go up or down, and then how much do we go side to side. What I like to always say is that you read a graph the same way you read a book. You go from left to right. So I'm going to pick out this point here and this point here to work with. So to get from 1,5 to 2,3, my rise has to be negative because we need to go down. So I'm going to go down 2 spots, and since I'm going down, it's a -2. So I can put a -2 for my rise over what my run is. I go from 1 to 2, so my run is 1. Now, if you cannot simplify this fraction, you just want to leave it. But if you can simplify it, you want to. And we know that -2 divided by 1 is -2. So that is my M, that is my slope, that's my rise over run. Then your B is your Y-intercept. And your Y-intercept is always wherever your line crosses the Y-axis. If we think about football, an interception is whenever a defensive player cuts off the ball. It's the same thing here. It's where does the Y-axis cut off the line. So here's my Y-axis, well, here's my Y-axis, and here's my line, and they meet at 0.07. So my B, whenever I put it in the equation, will just be 7. It'll always be whatever your Y value is on the Y-intercept, on the Y-axis. And now we would just write our equation, Y equals -2x plus 7. That is slope-intercept form, and now you know more.
Hey guys, it's Miss Garner. We are going to go over now how to plot points for a linear equation and a couple vocabulary words that go along with it. So I'm going to start with my table over here. It gives me x and y values. I can think of each row as a coordinate point. So the first row, 0, 1 is a coordinate point, 1, 3 is a coordinate point, and 2, 5 is a coordinate point. So I'm going to plot each of these points. So the first one, I start at x equals 0, and I go up to y equals 1. So that's my first coordinate point. I have 1, 3. So x is 1, y is 3. And then my last coordinate point will be 2, 5. So I go over 2 and up to 0.5. Now that I have these 3 coordinate points, I connect them with a straight or with a line between the points as straight as you can. And that is my line. So now to go over a couple of vocabulary words that we will be using in this unit. We have linear, proportional, and nonlinear. So you want to be able to use these vocabulary words to describe a line that you see on a graph or with a table. So linear just means straight line. So in this case, if we look at our example, we can see that this is a straight line. You drew it as close as you could between the points, making it a straight line. So in this case, this example is linear. Nonlinear, the word non before just means not, so this is just not a straight line. So in this case, we have a linear line. Nonlinear, an example of this would be something like that. If the line curves, if it moves any way other than in a straight way, it's nonlinear. And then our last vocabulary word, proportional, means it goes through the point 0, 0. So if our line goes through our origin, point 0, 0, meaning our y-intercept is 0, then the line is proportional. So if we look at our example, we can see that our line crosses our y-intercept at the point 1. We can see here that our y-intercept is 1. So in this case, this is not a proportional line. So it's linear but not proportional. So those are the big vocabulary words to know, along with slope and y-intercept, which was explained earlier in this video. And now you know.